impression what kind of disciplines are coming together in our team. I'll show you my dear colleagues I'm very happy to work with. This is Steffen Kühne. He's our tech lead in the data team and also in our lab. He has a journalism and a programming background, as well as Michael Kreil, who is a data journalist. Sebastian Beil has a UX background and is a stellar programmer of any kind. Morteza Charizé is one of those colleagues who has one leg in academia and one leg in our lab. He's a machine learning expert and reinforces our skills there. Rebecca Ciesielski joined our team in September as an algorithmic accountability reporter. And this is Cecile Schneider, who was so kind to take the screenshot. That's why she's very small. She's our product lead and is responsible for all the automated products we are doing in the lab. We are not alone. We are working with those two other teams, and the borders between those teams are very, very low. At least this is what we are trying to do. We are working very closely with the data team and with our investigative colleagues, and we are building so-called ad hoc teams. This is a model we found at the Washington Post. And it works like this. You're getting people from different teams together for projects. You make sure that all the skills you need for a project are in the project. And after the project, everyone goes back to the team where they can really hone a certain expertise like AI, like data journalism, like investigative journalism. And then we're coming back together for different projects. All of us, we're taking algorithms and automation for journalism, and we're using it for investigative journalism and for automated formats. And those formats are new in our portfolio, and it came with the lab. It was a decision that we are pairing content and product in one team. And up till now, it works quite good, but it's also quite an experiment, I would say. So let's jump right into why I'm here. So how and why we're using AI and automation. Kind of obvious, we're using AI and automation to add assets to our investigative toolbox, as we're working very closely with our investigative colleagues. And this is a story we published this year together with other parts of German public broadcasting and together with all the three teams I just mentioned. And it's around the issue how Facebook fails to address hate speech. We gathered a lot of data in private Facebook groups, and we saw that there was a lot of right-wing and Nazi content. So we trained an object recognition algorithm to sift through this large amount of content, and we trained it for swastikas, for Hitler pictures, for other kind of Nazi content, and it worked quite well. We found a lot. And ironically enough, we took an algorithm that was developed by Facebook Research itself. So we could not only prove that Facebook could easily detect and also delete, if they wanted, this kind of content, we could also see that Facebook has already the tools and the algorithms on hand to do that. And this is the kind of reporting we want to do more. It's called algorithmic accountability reporting. There are a lot of newsrooms, or I would say some newsrooms in the US that already do this kind of reporting, like ProPublica, like The Markup, and they're doing amazing stuff. And I think it's important to do the same in Europe, and this is one of our focuses at the lab. We are using AI and automation to make our reporting broader and deeper. And this is an example of a prototype we developed together with our sports department. We talked to them and they told us that they don't have the time and resources to cover basketball as much as they want because games are very late in the evening and because very often a soccer game is in parallel. So we built a data to text process and we are delivering directly after the game this text to the sports department. And the reporters there can decide if they want to review the text and publish it right away, or if they want to enrich it with photos, with videos, with a more emotional text. And this helps them to be a more reliable partner for a basketball fan base. They can really reliably publish text on each game, and this makes their workflows easier. We are also using AI and automation to make our news more interactive. And we did this year one first step in this direction. We published an Alexa skill, and we wanted to see how regional data feels on an interactive level on a voice platform. This is why we published a bioweather skill. and we took data set that was very easy to understand, where we didn't have to do any kind of calculation. It's a data set that explains you how weather might influence your health. And it works like this: you enter your zip code or your city, and you're getting back this kind of information. And this gave us a feeling how you can interact with regional data, how interactive news on a voice platform feels. And it was a very interesting experience for us, and we want to go further on this path in the future. We also want to use automation to personalize news. And personalizing for us also means regionalizing, because we have a federal broadcasting system here in Germany, and regional data, regional news is a big topic for us. So we took part in a BBC hackathon 2 weeks ago. It was a hack around structured journalism. Structured journalism is the idea that you take existing media items, that you enrich them with a lot of metadata, store it in a cloud, and then draw out personalized lists, personalized products that really make news interactive and personalized. We decided to tackle regional news because that's so important for us as a broadcaster. And the prototype that fell out of the hack is this. You are entering your zip code or your city, and you are getting back a mix of news that is centered around the place you just entered. This really redefines for us regional news, because up till now it was the editors or the reporters that decided what kind of regional is regional for the users. And this gives the users more control. They can say what they think is important to them. It really personalizes audio and personalizes regional news. You can also skip the different news items. And we think that we might serve after the regional part the national news, but this is only a prototype. It works, but we have to do a lot of user tests. We have to see if the users like what we do, and we have to also build a lot of infrastructure around that if we really want to make it work. When people talk about automation, they usually talk about replacing repetitive tasks, and this is one of our motivations as well. We also want to do that. This is why we built the COVID website in our broadcaster. When the pandemic started, we got a lot of questions from all over the broadcaster and from a lot of newsrooms, because they were confronted to report on a large amount of data each day. And very soon, our colleague Steffen Kühne decided to automate this process. So he built a data to text and a data to graphics process with the COVID data, the official COVID data here in Germany. And the result is a website that is refreshed with the data 4 times a day. And it was for our newsroom as a first step, because we wanted to, well, save them time and give them the analysis and the trends they needed to see every day, so they didn't have to sift through all the data for themselves. We tested it with the newsroom for, I would say, a few weeks, 2 weeks or so. And then we decided it is also interesting for our users, and we could also publish it for our users. And now it's also part of our newsletter. And it's a very good example for me, because it works newsroom facing and also works user facing, which is always the most beautiful use of automation, I think. Now I want to jump into the question how to implement AI and automation in the newsroom. And this not only has a technical part, it has a big human part in it as well. That's why we would say it makes sense to approach stakeholders in your organization upfront if you want to do anything with automation. When we built our lab, and it's called AI and Automation Lab, it already has it in the name, we got a lot of questions about how we want to automate, if we want to replace journalists, if they're losing their jobs. So we took really time and resources to take this question serious and to answer it. And we talked to our staff council, and very early on with a lot of newsrooms that had a lot of questions. And we are doing also workshops with the newsrooms. So when we think that sports might be a department but where there is a lot of data, we first ask them to do a workshop with us to really understand their workflows. Sometimes we even spend days with them to see how they work, that we can really make educated suggestions on what kind of automation makes sense, and that they really have a say in what might be automated in the future and what really saves them time and resources to have their hands free for real reporting. It makes sense to look out for pain points. This is what we do in those workshops. We have to understand where the newsroom is struggling, where they don't have enough resources, and how we can save time for them. This is what we did with the COVID newsletter. This was kind of obvious because we got a lot of questions for help from the newsrooms when the pandemic started, but sometimes it's well, less obvious and you have to find it out during workshops. You have to talk to a lot of people. You have to spend a lot of time to understand workflows. We experienced that it makes sense to work towards specific use cases. And we saw this when we did a prototype for a summarizer. I don't know if you've heard about it, but there has been a huge collaboration of newsrooms organized by the London School of Economics this year. It's called Journalism AI, and we were a part of it. And our task was to look into summarization, AI summarization, how this might help journalism. That's why we built a prototype in the lab to see if we can tackle it from a technical point of view. But also we trained it with news. And we wanted to use it for another use case. We wanted to use it for long-term texts as well, long-form texts as well, sorry, features or reportage texts. And it turned out that it works for news. It also sometimes works for long-form texts, but it doesn't really work reliable for them. So you really have to know upfront what you're training your algorithm for, because it saves you a lot of time. We didn't know because we didn't have the use case, but in the future, we would always make sure to really work towards a use case. It makes sense to support strategic organizational goals because it really increases the buy-in you get for your new team and also for the tasks you have in front of your chest. That's why we are tackling regional content, because this, for us as a broadcaster, is part of our strategic goals. It's part of our mission to really care for the region, what we are responsible for. That's why we also are focusing our efforts, well, part of our efforts in this. When you think about AI and automation, you have to think about your infrastructure. And I was talking about a structured journalism, the idea to really tag media content and then have it ready for personalization, for any kind of regionalization. This kind of infrastructure lies behind it. It means to store your media objects, to tag your media objects automatically and manually, to store it in a cloud, and then you can think about something like personalized audio, personalized video, personalized lists, or personalized searches on voice platforms like Alexa. So this is the long-term task we have, to build up the infrastructure together with a lot of other departments in our broadcaster. You have to have a lot of people on the table, like IT, like the archives, like the people building the pipelines between the different systems. And it's really long-term work. And we have to see that we balance our output between the long-term strategic goals and also the short-term prototypes we are doing. Talking about prototype, we are trying to feedback what we learn when we prototype back into our strategy. This is part of our job, part of our mission as a lab, that we really help our senior management to make educated decisions about the future and about future infrastructure we need. As I said, these are really long-term decisions, and we as a small team can contribute to that. And I guess every data team in the newsrooms can contribute to that. And I would love to encourage you to also reach out to your senior management to offer this kind of knowledge you only have as a data team. As 20 minutes are very short, I just want to give you a short peek into our freshly published AI ethic guidelines. We just published them, I would say, 2 weeks ago, and we tried in our guidelines to translate what we have as journalistic guidelines and as editorial guidelines into the age of automation and AI. You can find here a QR code. Please tag it and go to the page, read through it. Those are really living standards. We are very happy to get questions and to get a discussion around that, because I also think that data teams and also our lab, we are also there to raise this kind of topic and to answer this kind of question. And as this is very, very new, we are happy to really rework and rethink what we did there. So thank you so much, and always feel free to reach out if you want to get in touch.